Okay, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Thank you to everyone who did end up voting in that straw poll. Seems like we have a pretty decisive victory for True versus Game Time to be the series. So here we are. Let's talk a bit about these two players. Both of them pretty damn awesome. I'm a huge fan of True. He's like he's pretty much one of my favorite Korean players in general because he's just been playing such an active part in the growth of the North American scene. Not just kind of staying here, being that kind of traditional Korean that some people were not a huge fan of, that would just kind of sit around in North America, not participate in any events, and quote-unquote take all of our money. No, he was actively practicing with a lot of North American players and improving them. But of course, he is an unbelievable badass, and has a pretty sick ZVZ win rate of 75%. Facing off versus Game Time, my up-and-coming player for North America 2017. Really looking forward to seeing how this guy is going to do. But Game Time is one of the players that does struggle a little bit with mentality. And remember, this is the loser's bracket, so he's going to be having come off of a loss from the winner's bracket. And that can always affect a player that is a little bit more in his own head sometimes. We'll see how things go as we hop onto Odyssey for game number 1. We'll see you guys there. Here we are, ladies and gentlemen, hopping into game number 1 in this best of 3 from the losers round 1. Spawning up here in the top left-hand corner of the map, we have the yellow Zerg player from Sloth Esports Club. It's the up-and-coming player, Game Time, from United States of America. And his opponent spawning down here in the bottom right-hand corner of the map, the red Zerg player, the Korean from Storm Gaming. Put your hands together for True, who was in Korea not that long ago. I actually am not 100% certain if he is even back in the United States or if he played these games all the way from Korea. That actually seems entirely possible and probable. But we can see he's going for the early pool, looking to put on some potential pressure, or at least play it a little bit safer, if nothing else. And Game Time going for that hatch first is saying, you know what? A life with 0 risks is no life at all. But going for a hatch first is not that crazy risky. A lot of Zerg players have figured out how to deal with the early aggression we've seen. Even I think it was Cyril or somebody recently released a guide on YouTube on how to defend against a 13-12. And No Regret cursed him and said, "Why did you do this? Now my win rate is going to go down," because that's all that No Regret can do. That's the joke, right? Oh. But yeah, a couple of lings are going to be made over here for True. It's nothing crazy aggressive. He's making more another drone behind this. He's really just going to be looking to get up that early queen. We could be seeing some kind of big ling flood. He could go for still all kinds of early all-ins. This is a pretty fast baneling nest, so this is a good signal. We might be seeing a big all-in or attack. Game Time, I think, is one of those players that it's a little bit harder to say this about ZVZ, since it's always been a little bit more of a volatile matchup, and you kind of have to play a little more adaptive in this matchup. But it's certain. Game Time is definitely one of those players that I think does better as the game goes on. To an extent, he is really more of those mid-game players. I think there are early game players like No Regret, there are mid-game players like Game Time, and there are late game players like Bales, just to talk about some of the players that we're playing today. And Game Time doesn't really hit a huge stride in the early stage of the game, but he finds a really good point in the mid-game, and then he kind of has a little bit of a fall off as the game goes on. And I think he's been improving a lot in the later stage of the game, as it goes into the really late game. But that early game, I feel like, is probably still one of his bigger weaknesses. So we'll see how things go as he is most certainly going to be up against a bit of aggression. That Overlord finishing up. True, I imagine is going to be making a huge flurry of units, as we already have only two banelings being made defensively. I really thought this was going to lead into a bit of aggression, but no, True is just making more and more drones. In fact, it's Game Time the one that's going to be making a ton of these early lings and banelings. Going for a slightly faster third expansion as well, but he wants to put the pressure on. Ling speed is finally finished up. True's going to see some of the lings making their way across the map, but Game Time's going to try and push back that Overlord to try and prevent the vision. No, he's just going to run them straight in clear vision of the Overlord. So True should know there's a handful of them coming his way. Getting ready to micro these banelings. Banelings being morphed in right in plain view as well. Game Time got to be careful about how he takes the stayers and trades. Loses one morphing baneling, and two of them they're already completed for two banelings. So not the best trade for Game Time. He's going to end up trading out more. And it seems like Game Time is not quite making the progress he wanted to. Remember, he's down 4 workers. He's finding an opportunity to drone up 7 additional. So he's going to be climbing a bit further ahead, but he needs to make sure he doesn't lose too much. Otherwise, this will end up biting him in the butt. Okay, a couple of the banelings are getting picked off. True's doing a really nice job of defending, but Game Time does seem like he has a slight, or it seemed like he had a slight little worker lead. Seems like it's more or less evened out with some more workers being made over here for Game Time. The army supply is also relatively even, with True having a very, very slight advantage, but it's hard to be aggressive with that advantage if some of that army supply is in banelings. Unless you make those banelings aggressively, it takes a while for them to make their way across the map. But oh, actually, Game Time doesn't quite have as many units across the map, on his side of the map, to defend. 2 banelings about to finish up. But these lings from True could do some annoying damage. Killing off a drone here or there will definitely add up. He segments off a couple of Zerglings over to the right-hand side. Did Game Time notice them? He's cleaning up some of those units over there. He's moving his units back over to the front because he knows that there's more units coming in. But True can run in with some of those banelings on the mineral line. And I don't mean this mineral line. I mean this mineral line over here. Oh, a lot of Game Time's Zerglings are also caught behind this queen. Okay, he does notice in time, but he loses 4 or 5 drones over there. Oh, God. Pretty substantial losses as Game Time now reduced down to 27 workers, and that's with his additional workers finishing up production tab. True's up to 42. And also, he does not have a huge army anymore. But that next round of units is about to finish up. He's finishing up some of these banelings. He's got to make a good defense happen. He needs a good baneling hit over here. The queens are getting full surrounded over here. Okay, that's not a terrible baneling connection. The queen still ends up falling down, though. And the lings are going to get in on top of the drones, focus firing some of them down. But as True and Game Time play Ring Around the Rosie, I feel like this giving more time to True is going to end up favoring True a lot more. Game Time is under pressure to make something happen right now, and the longer he waits, the harder this is going to get. And now the roaches are out. There are some roaches and ravagers out over here for Game Time, but the numbers are just so far in True's favor. GG gets called. True takes game number 1 in the ZVZ. Okay, and so we get ready to hop into game number 2 with True sitting up at a 1-0 lead in this best of 3. Let's get that updated on the overlay. Game number 2 is going to happen on Blood Boil, it seems like. And the name Blood Boil is in Korean for me. Oh, because, yeah. It's because about who I was able to get the replays from. Right. But, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to hop into that. So, without further ado, let's get to it. I'm sure you guys also want to see the rest of these games and also hop into that Scarlet vs. Neeb series, which is coming up very, very shortly. We'll see you guys there. Here we are, ladies and gentlemen, hopping into game number 2. It's going to be match point because this is a best of 3. And we're starting up here on the top, or sorry, the bottom right-hand corner of the map. Yellow Zerg player from Sloth Esports Club on his final lifeline in the loser's bracket. Give it up for game time. And his opponent spawning up here on the top left-hand corner of the map. The red Zerg player from Storm Gaming, the Korean himself. 1 game away from moving on. It is True. And holy cow, I think that was the first intro I've done in over a week that the cameras didn't get messed up from it. But okay, game time, going for the pool, gas pool. Playing it out safe this game. Doesn't want to take any big chances. Whereas a True going for the hatch first. Hatch pool gas. Okay. Blood Boil is a bit of an interesting map for those who do not know. Your in-base natural expansion only has 1 gas geyser, and this plays a much less significant impact in ZVZ than it does in, say, like Protoss versus Zerg or Protoss versus Terran, etc. Basically any of the Protoss matchups. But still can play a pretty significant impact if we end up seeing this move on, because True going for the low ground expansion means he has a slightly more vulnerable base, but at least has 2 gas geysers, whereas Game Time's base is only going to have 1. It's going to make it harder for him to transition out if they end up going to Roach versus Roach Wars. If they go into Muta Wars, that's where it's really going to be playing a much larger impact, as you aren't going to quite have all of the gas that you would normally like to have in a ZVZ. But okay, what is this game going to be going into? True should have enough gas relatively shortly for Zergling speed. Game Time throwing down his Baneling Nest pretty early on. Once again, this is similar to what True did last game, but True didn't end up getting aggressive off of it. We'll see if Game Time does. Link speed should be significantly further ahead for Game Time. I saw like 30 to 45 seconds. He could take advantage of that window. He's making 4 lings. If he makes 1 more set of lings, I am going to be not fully convinced he's okay. Yeah, he's going aggressive. He's going all in on this. So True has no idea about this. His overlords are only just now coming in toward that natural expansion. He's looking around, hasn't even actually seen anything besides, I guess, now these initial 6 couple of Zerglings. 4 Zerglings? Yeah, seen a few of them. But he also sees that there's no low ground natural expansion, so he doesn't necessarily know about the back base. He wants to confirm what kind of attack this is, and these lings are going to be the ones that do that. Really clever that True hides a couple of these Zerglings, but is he going to need those for the defense? 1 queen does end up falling, but now these, or sorry, 1 of these overlords ends up falling, but these queens also just out here in the center. Game Time is engaging directly against them, and not only is he supply blocked, but losing all those initial Zerglings that probably wanted to turn into Banelings is really, really devastating to him. The queens even get back onto creep, but granted, 1 of them does get surrounded. Game Time is not out of this just yet, but things are looking really grim because his reinforcements are going to be so much later. He has to have this snowball right now. He cannot just take even trades this time. 1 Baneling going off on a couple of lings. He's looking for a good trade. He gets so close to it, but no! A lot of Banelings finish up over there for True as well, and Game Time loses all of his Banelings. These drones don't actually even seem to care that much about the lings anymore. 2 more Banelings finish up for Game Time. These may be his last remaining helps. Oh my god, he gets a good hit on a lot of the drones, but Game Time is down to just 10. Oh my god, there was a big hit. I think that did True make Banelings and run them into Game Time's mineral line? He must have. And now it's 19 workers to 10. True has additional Banelings. He has lings. He has no queens, so he's missing on larva injects, but he has that natural expansion that's still giving him some of those extra larva. And off of 19 workers, I feel like that's just going to be enough. Baneling finished up in time, cleans up a majority of those lings that make their way into the main base. Game Time. Oh, he's catching a break over there. He gets some pretty good trades with those Banelings. Well, gets another good one, but there's still 2 Banelings left over for True that are going uncontested. In Game Time, he's just starting to peter out. Off of 10 workers, you can't actually afford all that much. Some more lings make their way into the main base. They're going to try and turn into Banelings up here. True doesn't actually see them, so maybe they'll be able to get some devastating amounts of damage. This may be his last remaining hope. These 2 Banelings. He's not even going to let them finish. GG can play. Well played gets called. True takes the 2-0 over Game Time. Moves on to the next round of losers bracket. And oh my god, that one supply blocked could be the big game changer that prevented Game Time from winning that game. It really looked like he was going to be able to catch True so far off guard. Even with the kind of big bailing run by they did into Game Time's natural or mineral line, his main base mineral line, killing off a lot of workers and everything. It was good, but I think it was just the supply block that prevented those reinforcements coming out and stopped Game Time from really being able to continue that pressure as hard as he would have liked to. But either way, that's the way the cookie crumbles and True moves on. Big congratulations to True. And, you know, a little bit unfortunately disappointing for Game Time as he gets knocked out for the second time in WCS NA Challenger. In the first round of the winners bracket and first round of the losers bracket, he goes out. And he's a really promising up-and-coming player. He had a great performance at DreamHack Austin, took out Thermal, really turned a lot of heads, but is just really struggling, I think, right now to replicate the success. So hopefully he'll be able to make something happen in the future. Either way, ladies and gentlemen, time for waiting is finally over. We're hopping into our final series of the night. It's going to be Scarlet versus Neeb from the winners bracket finals. The two players that went undefeated for all of WCS NA Challenger up until this point. We'll see you guys in a little bit.